Empire of Rome. Basically, they paid fealty to the Romans, they paid them taxes, and they allowed themselves to be governed. But in the 70s, 71 AD, they had a little bit of an uprising against the Romans. Before I tell you any more, look at this for a view. And you can hear the church bells in the distance. And you get a good look at York Minster Cathedral. Isn't that gorgeous? So the Briganti tribe, they rebelled against the Romans in 70 AD, and the Romans responded by sending the 9th Legion, approximately 6,000 Roman soldiers, to the north. And the Romans decided to build a fortress here called Eboracum, and it was built on the joining of two rivers, the Foss and the Ouse. Originally they built the defensive ditches of the fortress, which covered about 50 acres. That's about 25 to 30 football fields. It was absolutely massive. So they built the walls that surrounded the fortress initially in earth and timber, and later they were replaced in stone. So where I'm walking just now is the original route of the defensive walls of that original Roman fortress that was built in 71 AD. The name Eboracum, they believe, comes from a literal translation means the place of the yew tree. So clearly there were a lot of yew trees here. Can't get a good view, but that's the bells of York Minster going off just now to say that it is 5:45. But we'll get a much better view of York Minster in a second. Well, in about a minute. So Eboracum, founded in 71 AD. Most people now know it as York, and for a while in the 9th, 10th and 11th centuries it was called Jorvik, because it became the capital in England of the Danish Vikings who invaded in the 900s. So I'm pointing to the side occasionally because I don't want to film people, so don't panic if I do it. Thanks. So we're back. So the defensive city walls of York. So the name Jorvik was a Danish Viking name. Believed to mean the place of the wild boar. So we went from Eboracum, the Roman name in 71 AD, which was the place of the yew tree, and it changed to Jorvik. I'll give you a little view here from the city walls. Another glimpse of the central tower of York Minster Cathedral, built from the 7th century. In its present form, it was built around the 1230s in stone that we see today. It took about 270 years to complete, so it was completed in the 1400s. This little tower here, I think it's called Robin Hood Tower. It's this little projected wall. So it was a way of covering the flanks of the two walls to my left and to my right. So I'll give you a little look at how it looks. So from here you could fire arrows to the left and to the right at attackers. Look at that sunset. It's not quite a sunset yet, but it's definitely getting low. It's gorgeous, isn't it? And then over on this side, Isn't that stunning? So for anyone who's just joined, we're in the city of York in the north of England. The city was founded in 71 AD by the Romans, named Eboracum. In the 900s it changed its name to Jorvik and it became the Danish Viking capital of England. It was then regained by the kings of Northumberland. I think it was sometime in the 1100s, and it was later then changed to the name York from the Danish Jorvik. And it is a beautiful evening. It is 5:48 p.m. and this is another little defensive feature on the city walls. And if I pan round to the right, we've got another incredible view of York Minster Cathedral. So that's the central tower, the square tower. And then you've got the pointy roof, which is the chapter house. And if I go this way and I look to the right hand side, you've got the twin towers of the western entranceway. Looks like it's going to be a beautiful sunset over the city tonight. And before I go down the walls, here's this little feature again, this defensive feature along the city walls to fire arrows at your attackers. Now later in life, once we got rid of the Romans and we got rid of the Danish Vikings, the next problem York had was the Scottish. The Scots regularly raided the north of England, and despite what you've seen in Braveheart, William Wallace did not sack York. That is a piece of Hollywood. He did invade the north of England and he did burn and loot many castles and many towns, but mostly around the area of Carlisle and Penrith. He didn't come as far as York. But that didn't mean they didn't try. There we go, look at that. Absolutely stunning. We're going to get an even better view in a second, so stick with me. It'll be well worth it. So the Roman fortress of Eboracum, founded in 71 AD, was founded by the 9th Legion. They famously disappeared, possibly in Scotland, killed by the Scottish tribes, or the Caledonii as they called them. There's another beautiful building here. This is Gray's Court with the red leaves on top of it. It's a pub and a restaurant today. It's named after one of the former mayors of York. Look at that for a sunset. Gorgeous. Absolutely stunning. So, whoop. Look at that, it's stunning. So the city walls of York are open to the public. They're free, absolutely free. Anyone can come on them. They're open from approximately sunrise to sunset. And you can walk around them nowadays in a clockwise or an anti-clockwise direction. So some people coming, so I'm just going to film into the bushes. And I'm going to give you another great view of York Minster. Oh, are you closing? Have I got to go that way? No, this way. Alright, okay, see, there we go. I told you that the wall's closed, so I've got to go back the way that I came. The gatekeeper is here. I thought I would have made it round before, but I'm getting turfed. Getting turfed out. Oh. You guys. So there we go. So we're getting never do live TV. So what they do, they close the city walls around about dusk, but it looks like his clock's a little bit fast. So we've got to go back the way that we just came from and head back. But if we had have carried on, we'd have come to another gateway where I was going to go down anyway. We were only just a few metres away from it, called Monk's Bar. And the Monk's Bar takes its name obviously from the monks, and a bar again means a portcullis or a barbican, which is another name given to it. These houses are all occupied. They're all private homes, many of them. Some of them are used by the Dean of and the Chancellor of York Minster Cathedral. And I don't think you'd get much money or much change from about £10 million if you wanted to buy one of them. So unless you've got a lot of cash, just come as a day visitor. So Monk's Bar houses a museum, so that's the one that we almost made it to, but not quite. And it's a museum dedicated to the life of Richard III, the famous king who was encapsulated in a play by William Shakespeare. My kingdom for a horse, a horse, my kingdom for a horse. He fought a rival for the crown of England, and he famously died in battle. His body was rediscovered just a few years ago in a pub car park. He was suffered from a disease called scoliosis, so he effectively had a hunchback, and his death in battle resulted in the beginning of the Lancastrian kings, what we today call the Tudors. So it was the York against the Lancastrians. So we're keeping on going. Don't worry, I'm not giving up, so don't disappear on me yet. We'll just restart the tour at a slightly different spot. We'll actually go to the base of York Minster Cathedral, which you can see through the trees. It's a shame. I thought we would have made it as far as the next bar, but it didn't happen. So it's an opportunity to say, if you don't follow me already, then give me a follow. Like, tap the screen. If you go to my profile, you will find my link tree. If you click on that, it takes you to my Instagram, my TikTok, my website, my YouTube channel, my Facebook page. So you've got no excuse for not following me and liking what I do. And likewise, give me a like on here, tap the screen, and also follow me on TikTok if you don't already. And for anyone who's just joined, we are in York, the ancient city of York in the north of England. And yes, I am a tour guide in Scotland, but I also do a tour from Scotland to York, which takes in this incredible city with York Minster Cathedral at its heart. And also the tour from Edinburgh or from Glasgow in Scotland down to York can take in Hadrian's Wall, which is the largest standing ancient structure in the United Kingdom, 73 miles long. So we are back at Bootham Bar. So this is where I came up the stairs for anyone who's stuck with me. And this is a defensive gateway. You can see it's 3-storey, surrounded by arrow slots to allow the defence of the ancient city. Hiya. And we're going to come back out at the York Art Gallery, not Yorkshire Art Gallery, York Art Gallery. Look at that sunset. It's going to be a cracker tonight. Absolute cracker. Sorry again about the roadworks, but we have been turfed off the city walls because they are closing. However, gets you to see a slightly different side of the city because we're going to go to York Minster Cathedral from a different angle. To do that, I'm going to go through Bootham Bar, which is directly behind me, so I'm going to walk up in the opposite direction and turn round to give you a proper view of it. So here we go. Here is Bootham Bar. So a defensive gateway built on the original Roman foundations of the Roman fortress of Eboracum, which was built in 71 AD. So this is the main entrance that would have been for carts and horses. And either side there's a pedestrian gate as well. So let's go through this pedestrian gate. And it takes you onto this street called High Petergate. So there's two High Peter gates, there's high and there's low. And it's called Petergate because York Minster Cathedral is dedicated to Saint Peter, and all around York you will see the crossed keys of Saint Peter for that reason. Look at this beautiful black and white building, very typically Tudor 1500s, 1600s. And we're hopefully going to go to the oldest street, or one of the oldest streets in York, which is the Shambles. Might be a wee bit busy because it's a busy time of night. It's only 6 PM here, give or take. Let me just check what time it is. 6 PM on the dot. So we're going to go to the great western doorway of York Minster Cathedral, which is over here. Look at the sun shining on that, it's like gold. So originally York Minster was painted. It would have been painted in white and pink. Quite gaudy colours, but hey, this was God's house. He wanted to make a little bit of a statement. York Minster is the largest Gothic cathedral in the north of Europe. It's about 160 metres from end to end. And if I stand over here, you can get a little bit of a view for just how big it is. Thankfully 2 people are standing there, so that gives you an idea of the scale. So at this western end there are 2 twin towers, or should I say twin towers, not 2 twin towers, there are 2 of them. And the huge doorway that you can see in the centre, just here, that is the grand western entrance door into York Minster Cathedral. That would be reserved for special religious occasions like Easter and Christmas, All Saints' Day, which preceded, or proceeded, should I say, Halloween as we call it now. You're welcome, we gave you Halloween. And look at all the carvings above the doorway, look at the detail. We can't go in, I'm afraid, it's just closing, so we cannot go in, and you need permission to film inside. So Unfortunately, we can't do that. However, you can appreciate the detail and the beauty from outside. So, the great western entrance to York Minster Cathedral. All these little sort of concave areas here would have all originally been filled with statues, religious statues. You can see them all the way up, but all the statues are missing. And that's because during the Protestant Reformation in England in the 1530s into the 1540s, this was a Catholic cathedral, so they smashed them all. They wanted to remove all existence of papism, or popism, the Pope of Rome. So England broke from the rule of the Pope of Rome. There's a little church here just to the side. There's been a church on this spot since the 1200s, and the present church that's here today was built in the 1500s. It's called something like St. Michael Buffon or something like that. I'm going to have to go and read the sign because my memory isn't what it used to be. It's called St. Michael Le Belfry is what it's called. I was close. Le Buffon, Le Belfry. I should have guessed. There's a massive sign right there, St. Michael Le Belfry. However, it was built in the 1500s on the site of a church that was built in the 1200s. However, someone incredibly important in British history was baptised in this little church. A man called Guy Fawkes. And over to the building on the right hand side is the little mask. That is the Guy Fawkes Inn. And that's because Guy Fawkes, also known as Guido Fawkes, was baptised in this church, and he famously tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament. 1605, if I remember rightly. Remember the 5th of November. Gunpowder season and plot. Gunpowder treason and plot. Losing the ability to speak. So Guido Fawkes, or Guy Fawkes as he was also known, was born just a stone's throw from here in a street called the Stone or the Stone Gate. So this is the southern transept of York Minster Cathedral. And York Minster Cathedral is built on the foundations of the headquarters of the original Roman fortress of Eboracum. In the 4th century, Constantius I died in Rome, and his son, later called Constantine the Great, was declared emperor of the Roman Empire on this very spot. And here's a statue of the man himself. So the headquarters of the Roman, I think it was called the Principalis, were sat on the very spot of York Minster Cathedral. And here we have got a Roman column. This is one of dozens of Roman columns found in the basement of York Minster Cathedral, what's called the Undercroft, which is right at the heart of York Minster. And it would have been one of dozens that would have surrounded the headquarters of the Roman fortress. Look at that, isn't that stunning? Look at the sunset. The church is in what's called a cross or a crucifix shape. So it runs from west to east. We were just on the western side. This is the eastern side over here with all the scaffolding on it. And this is what's called a transept. So if you imagine a cross, there are these two arms that reach out. This is the southern transept. On the other side is the eastern transept. So we'll take a little bit of a wander along this little street to our left, which leads on to the Stone Gate or the Stene Gate. There's two reasons why it was called the Stone Gate or the Stene Gate. The first is that it was the first medieval road in York to be paved. So to have a pavement, and that's why it was called the Stene Gate. The other suggestion is it's called the Stone Gate or the Stene Gate because the stonework that was used to build York Minster Cathedral was hauled from the river up this street to York Minster. Look at these beautiful buildings. So most of these buildings date to the 1500s into the 1600s. And it's on this street that Guy Fawkes was born, which was fought between Catholic Spain and Protestant Holland. And that's where he got the name Guido. If you've heard of Guido Fawkes, that was the Spanishization of Guy. So we're going to carry on now. What was High Peter Gate, which is where we've just come from, which is along here. We're now going to go on to Low Peter Gate. So again, Peter Gate comes from gate as in to walk, so a walkway, and Peter as in Saint Peter, who the York Minster Cathedral is dedicated to, Saint Peter. Who, correct me if I'm wrong, but was he not one of the apostles of Jesus? And did he not also have the keys to heaven or something to that effect? I think he did. I'm a bit of a heathen when it comes to religion, so my apologies. So again, we're surrounded by stunning architecture. These buildings mostly date to the 15 and the 1600s. This little building on the left-hand side, it's an Italian restaurant today. I've eaten there a few times. It was originally an all-girls school, built in the Georgian style between 1760 and 1820. After the dissolution of the monasteries, York fell on hard times because with the abbeys gone there were no pilgrims, and with the pilgrims gone there was almost no income. So through the 15 into the 1600s, York was pretty hard up. However, its fortune started to turn with the start of the 16 into the 1700s, and it became a very, very popular place for wealthy people to build houses. Thankfully, a lot of the medieval houses were saved. However, where we're just about to head into is, I think it's called the King's Square, or is it King's Court? I can never remember. I'll see a sign in a second. But this is where the Danish Vikings are believed to have had, it's called King's Square. This is where the Danish Vikings had their Dane Hall, which was basically their political centre of these streets. It as recently as the 1950s, all the houses along this side of the street were actually all medieval houses, and they stupidly knocked them down in the 1950s. Can you believe that? This was also a site of a church called the All Saints Church, and it existed from the 1200s right through to the 1937, I think it was, or 1939, and they knocked that down as well. Now the reason for this wide open space is because this area was the graveyard of All Saints Church. So underneath this paved area are hundreds and hundreds of burials. And when they actually turned it into the square that it is today, they reused some of the gravestones as paving slabs. So not only are we walking on top of dead people, but they also recycled and up-purposed a lot of the gravestones. And there's a few of them just here. A lot of them are so smooth you can't really read them. But you see just here. And here's another. And another. So it was called the Holy Trinity of All Saints, and it was knocked down in 1937. So that's the reason for this wide open square, because it was a graveyard. Space was a premium in ancient cities like York, so like Edinburgh, they simply build on top of you after a while. So we're nearly at the end of the tour. I'm just going to show you one more thing. Some of you might have seen the video recently on my channel. Now this is the entrance to the Shambles. So this beautiful little house is at the entrance to the Shambles. And do you see how it's got this unusual shape? That's because these houses in medieval times were built without foundations, and they're largely built with a timber frame. So what would happen is, over time, the house would begin to sink and the timber would begin to stretch, which is why you get this banana shape of the floor as the walls with the most weight on them start to sink into the ground. Much of the old medieval houses in York are built on no foundations. So we're going to take you to the Shambles. So the Shambles was first mentioned in the Domesday Book, which Doomsday comes from the word Domus Deus, which means God's judgment, or words to that effect. And it was instructed to be written. It was basically a census, the first ever census in England. And in 1066. So he commissioned the Domesday Book in 1086. This is the Shambles, and the name Shambles comes from the Anglo-Saxon flesh hamels, which means flesh shelves, because this was the butcher's quarter of the ancient city of York. The curbs are very, very high, and that's because the butchers would throw the entrails of the animals into the street, and then once or twice a day or once or twice a week they would use gravity to flush the entrails of the dead animals downhill towards the river. So most of the houses in this street date to the 13 and the 1400s. The style of architecture used is called jettying. So you had to pay taxes based on the size of your ground floor. So what they did is they spent as little money and time as possible on the ground floor, and the upper floors projected out like upside down pyramids. But the benefit of that was it provided protection for shoppers from the wind and the rain. It also provided some shading. And this little building here on the left is the York Ghost Merchants. A very, very creepy little shop where you can go in and you can buy your own ghost. Your ghost chooses you, you don't choose your ghost. Well worth a visit. It's a great experience if you come to York. Shelves and shelves of ghosts, all ready for their new home. So I'll swing around again and give you another view of the Shambles. So you've got the little Shambles running off to the right, and the street we are on is called the Shambles. Originally it was called the Great Shambles, later changed to the Shambles, And these little wooden shelves are the reason it's called the shambles, because it literally means flesh shelves. Because the butchers would have displayed what they had for sale on these large wooden shelves. At one point there were 33 butcher shops on this street. 33. Today there are none at all. Changed times. So I'll step back again a little bit and give you another view for anyone who's just joined. There you go. The shambles in York. It's beautiful, absolutely stunning place. Can you imagine how it would have smelled? It would have been disgusting. Right, so we're heading downhill and I'm just about finished. So straight ahead of me is a pub called the Golden Fleece. I would highly recommend it. It's regarded as the most haunted pub in England. And also there's the Harry Potter spin-off. So this is the shop that shall not be named, because a lot of people think that this is the inspiration for Diagon Alley in Harry Potter, but we all know that's Edinburgh. So you can come, you can buy your own personalised wand. The shop that shall not be named. And that's another view up the length. Shame about the scaffolding, they're doing a little bit of work on the building here. Kind of detracts from the beauty of it all, but hey, what the hell. So if you ever come to York, go to the pub next to Greg's, the baker's. Once you've had your sausage roll, pop next door. It's the pub called the Golden Fleece, amongst the most haunted pubs in England. And immediately to the right hand side is York Gin, this very characteristic black and white Tudor building, which I think dates to the early 1500s. And again, you can see, do you see how it sags in the middle? And that's because, as I said before, there are no foundations on the building, so it's generally starting to sink over time. I'm going to walk back a wee bit because I'm blocking the traffic. So just a chance to say thank you to all for watching and farewell. I hope you've enjoyed your tour and have a great evening. Thank you for all the tips, all the likes, all the presents, all the roses. Oh, so many coming in. Much appreciated. So I hope you all enjoyed. I'm sorry I missed, no doubt, loads and loads of questions, loads of comments. I think I just saw Delta Dawn. Are you here again, Delta? And I'm sure I've missed many people, many comments, many questions. My apologies, but it's very difficult to walk around these old medieval streets in York without falling over, so I have to do what I can to stop myself from disappearing. So thank you all for the gifts, for the tips, never expected but always appreciated. And if you haven't already, it's your last few seconds to give me a like, give me a follow. If you don't already, I've got a YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, you name it, I've got it. If you go on my profile of TikTok, you'll see a link called Linktree. If you click on that, that'll take you to all my individual pages, and it's your opportunity to learn a little bit more about me and my tours, and also my website. So thank you all for the tips, the gifts, the likes, the follows, the questions. And if I can, I'll try and do another tour later on tonight, but there are no guarantees. And the problem is it'll also be pitch black, so it might be difficult for you all to see. Hello Delta, how are you? So thanks all for watching. It is 20 past 6 here just now. So if I'm able, I'll come back on around 11 or 12 o'clock. So thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Give me a follow, give me a like, and hopefully I'll see you all on the next one. Okay, take care everyone. Stay safe. Speak to you soon.